Disclaimer, this series revolves around criticizing things, and the fact that I'm doing that doesn't necessarily mean I dislike the thing. Thank you. Click below to watch the original Sins video.
Steampunk. Still the worst genre in science fiction.
Genres don't really have any kind of inherent quality to them aside from personal preference, and that's okay. Dishonored isn't steampunk though.
The men who sent the assassin tried to use me as a pawn in a game of power. They would have succeeded, but my father, Corvo Attano, hunted them down and cut their conspiracy to pieces.
Did he now? Because everything we learn in this game points to the low chaos ending being canon, and Corvo killing everyone in the first game would be decidedly high chaos.
You can still get a low chaos ending if you kill all of the targets, so long as you don't go around just killing guards and overseers left and right. And in the illustration we see of the story, Corvo is only choking out the guard, and he's killing the not guard. This would still fit within a low chaos ending, and the phrase cut their conspiracy to pieces doesn't imply he killed anyone more than the conspirators themselves.
A monster the papers are calling the Crown Killer.
A monster the papers have been calling the Crown Killer? It looks to me like the Crown Killer is calling themselves the Crown Killer by writing the words Crown Killer on all of their crime scenes.
One thing I've always been curious about, Corvo is Emily's father, meaning the Empress had a child with her bodyguard while unmarried and never revealed who Emily's father was to the public. Even in a fantasy setting, I don't think Emily taking the throne would be accepted by the public or the government.
We have no idea how this culture or this political system would react to an event like this, but I guess if you just assume that they wouldn't be okay with it, instead of making the equally valid assumption, or arguably much more valid assumption because it's actually what happens, that they would be okay with it, then you can squeeze a sin out of it.
Today we honor my mother, the late Jessamine Caldwin.
You have to wonder if the conspirators chose to depose Emily on the anniversary of her mother's death, or if it just happened to work out that way.
You do not have to wonder this. In fact, my guess is that when you were writing this video, your first thought when you came to this part was to add a sin for the coincidental timing of these events, but then you realized that it could have just been planned out that way, so you turned it into a question instead. Or at least that may as well be what happened, because this question does not imply a sin, it's just a question.
We have an unexpected visitor, the Duke of Serkonos.
Ramsey says the Duke is bringing special gifts.
That's intriguing.
Corvo should have been at least a little suspicious about the unexpected arrival of the Duke of Sarkonis. First, the Crown Killer is murdering Emily's political opponents in Sarkonis, and Corvo suspects this is being done deliberately to weaken Emily. Second, the Duke brought previously unknown murder robots with him as gifts. And third, Corvo has been in this exact situation before where an empress is betrayed by the people who serve her during a time of political upheaval.
We have no reason to assume that Corvo isn't suspicious.
I present the lost sister of Jessamine Caldwin, your rightful empress, Delilah Caldwin.
If you didn't play the DLC for the first game, you better fire up Wikipedia to learn about Delilah like I had to.
I mean, you could go and research who Delilah is, or you could listen to the game as it introduces her to you and then tells you everything important there is to know about her. You know, whose solution is better? Who am I to decide such a thing?
My father was Emperor Uhorn Jacob Caldwin, and Jessamine was my younger sister.
You can tell Delilah is evil by the flanger effect they added to her voice.
And you can also tell that it's not a flanger by how different the effect used on her voice sounds to the one that you've used on your voice, which was a flanger. I kind of wish you hadn't used a flanger on your voice, just so that it wasn't so obvious that the effect on Delilah's voice wasn't a flanger. Because if it was less obvious, then I would have been able to show off one of my niche areas of knowledge, which is audio effects. You know, I dabble. I can do ghost, a voice sounding ghost. I sound like a ghost. I figured I had to do this all by myself. It's pretty neat, right? Penis.
Did you not hear the Duke just announce Delilah as the true Empress? You should already be ordering your men to attack. You've been in this situation before.
He has not been in this He's not been in this Empress. Oh, those aren't quite the words I was going for there. Okay. Well, you know, I'd hope he hasn't been, because, well, yeah. I'm not cutting this out. Fuck you. He has not been in this situation before. He's seen an empress assassinated, but not one denounced.
It's almost like the devs asked themselves, well, it's time to make a sequel. How do we improve on the last game? I know, what if we make an almost identical game to the first one, but allow the player to control a character with a distinct lack of dingly bits between their legs?
If you decide to play as Emily, you get a distinctly different set of abilities, which can lead to a different playstyle. But good dick joke, I guess.
Lady Emily, what happened?
There were 2 9-foot-tall steam-powered robots with a magical witch fighting just downstairs, and that was several minutes ago. You deserve this death.
But she wasn't there. We have no idea where she even was, and that was only a few minutes ago.
It would make way more sense to kill enemies instead of knocking them out, since they are all terrible people who betrayed you.
All of the guards deserve to die now? I mean, they are just doing their jobs right, and they've been told Emily is a fugitive and not the rightful empress. Also, you know, sometimes in my video games I like a morality system that's a bit more nuanced than they did bad things. That means you get to kill them and that's fine.
My name's Megan Foster. I work with an old ally of yours.
If you played through the DLC of the first game, you already know who Megan Foster really is and know that she helped assassinate Emily's mother. And the game saves that reveal until the very end like it's going to be some great plot twist.
To be fair, the plot twist also isn't that great even if you haven't played the DLC. She's just kind of like, I helped kill your mum, and you're like, oh. Well, bye. Also, Billy looks quite different now to how she looked in that DLC, plus she's going by a fake name, so it would be pretty reasonable if you don't realize that's her even if you have played the DLC.
We learned something scary down in the south, and I came to warn you.
Well, not very urgently. Emily found you still on your boat while the coup was underway.
At no point did Billy say the word urgently, but then you reply to it by going, well, clearly not very urgently. Like, what?
But I'll let you in on a secret. She's got her eyes set on a much greater prize.
But I won't tell you what it is.
The Outsider has always been a cryptic, mysterious asshole. This is completely within character for him.
Now I'm realizing that the world is more off-kilter than I imagined.
You only realize that now? Not after your mother was assassinated and the very same witch who dethroned you tried to take control of your body? That all happened while you were a little girl.
What she said was she's now realizing things were worse than she'd imagined. Not that she's just now realizing things are bad at all.
I just sent one of my boys to turn off the power to the carriage rails. When the juice is off, you can walk along the rails and get where you need to go. On the other side, there's a station that will take you to Addermire.
But you just sent one of your men to turn off the power to the rails, so the carriage won't work to get Emily across the water. Also, the reason Emily has to find another way to the asylum is because of a watchtower. Yet that tower is on the other side of the island. A boat could easily approach from the other side.
You mean the side where there's no docks and nothing but sheer cliffs? Great plan.
The highest praise I can give this game is its level design. It's great all around. And then you have levels like Jindosh's Clockwork Mansion that go above and beyond by actually shifting and changing on you. I was so genuinely impressed I'm taking off 2 sins for creativity.
This level was so infuriating it made me want to burn things. Plus, the shifting walls and rooms to me really just felt like a gimmick and it didn't really seem to add anything to the level for me. But from what I've seen, I gather that's just a me thing, so I guess I won't add a sin here.
But if you fall, I'll have your body carried to my lab for dissection and study.
She's just a regular human. Not much you can learn from dissection at this point.
It's almost as if this guy who seconds after meeting someone brought up the fact that he wants to dissect them is a bit weird. Also, Emily is a witch with the mark of the Outsider. She's not just a regular human. You have no idea what Jindosh might learn from dissecting her.
Welcome to the Steampunk Aperture Science Enrichment Center.
This game, that game.
An army of his clockwork soldiers. It would be the end.
Would it though? Sokolov created the tall boys from the first game, and those were way stronger than Jindosh's Clockwork Soldiers.
Bullshit.
Then one day, pretty Jessamine broke something worth a fortune, and the spy master caught us. She claimed I did it, and he whipped me in the garden house until I bled. My mother lost her kitchen job, and that night we were out on the streets with no place to sleep.
That's it? You can't be serious. Your sister blamed you for something she did as a child, and that's why you turned evil? Me and my brother did terrible stuff to each other all the time. But my brother never crossed the moral event horizon and tried to destroy the world because I told on him for smoking.
Did your brother get kicked out and have to live on the streets after you told on him for smoking? Delilah didn't hate Jessamine because of that one incident. She hated her because she lost everything that could have been hers to Jessamine, and spent her entire life living in her shadow.
All this time traveling with you and you never mentioned that?
My past is none of your business.
And Megan still refuses to reveal any information she has on the person Emily is about to go deal with. I guess the devs have the numbers that show not many people played the Dishonored DLC, and therefore don't know who Megan is, but I did.
Did you know? Then can you explain earlier in the video when you said this?
If you didn't play the DLC for the first game, you better fire up Wikipedia to learn about Delilah like I had to. The witches have brutally killed everyone in this museum, so you would think killing them would be justified. But no, if you want the low chaos rating, you have to choke them all out.
The low/high chaos endings have nothing to do with only killing bad people instead of killing good people. You get the high chaos ending if Emily becomes a character who's used to killing. If your playstyle turns Emily into a character who's just used to slaughtering her enemies, then she gets known as a vengeful empress instead of one who looks for peaceful solutions. This has nothing to do with whether or not you think the witches deserve it.
After Titanfall 2 and Dishonored 2 both featured a level about jumping back and forth between 2 moments in time, I'm starting to wonder why someone hasn't made an entire game around this mechanic instead of a single level. It's that good of a gimmick.
This level's gimmick is so good you could make it into an entire game of its own, which I'm adding a sin for. Because fuck you.
If you want to kill Delilah, you're going to have to find her spirit
and give it back to her.
The outsider could have told Emily all this at any time, but decided to wait until now.
Oh no, he waited until the information he was giving was relevant to the current situation. What an illogical move!
I've got a map of the Grand Palace for you, and I know something that may be useful. There's a hidden lever in the pantry that opens a passage to the Duke's vault.
That is how you circumvent your own security measures. If you go to the trouble of making a secure vault, don't put an easily accessed hidden entrance in the wine cellar.
The wine cellar door isn't easily accessible. There's a big locked vault door just behind it that requires the same key to get into as the main entrance.
If I wanted to depose him without having to slit his throat, do you think you could convince people that you're the Duke?
Normally when an aristocrat hires a body double to protect him, they make sure that person is extremely loyal. You would have to be, since your job is to put yourself in the line of danger for the real Duke. This body double, however, is more than willing to go along with Emily's plan to have the real Duke committed and for him to permanently take his place.
Not to mention, he spends his entire time walking around going, "Oh, I can't believe I have to pretend to be the Duke." He's not a great body double.
You let your mother slip into oblivion. Do you know where my mother's resting? In a child's coffin, her skinny legs tucked beneath her, because I couldn't afford proper burial.
It's way too late to try to make Delilah into a sympathetic character, especially now since it appears all hell is broken loose in Dunwall with corpses lining the streets.
You're right, they shouldn't have made any attempt to give her any character motivation whatsoever. So, the sin total was 27, and the punishment will be, well, obviously being Dishonored, right? Is there any other option here? The game franchise is called Dishonored, what did you expect the punishment to be? But before I bring the video to a close, it's time for a quickie review. I don't think I've ever reviewed a game before on this channel, so this should be fun. Dishonored 2 was really fun. It's exactly what I was looking for in a sequel to Dishonored. I mean, first off, I'm always a big fan of when, in the sequel to something, a character who in the original was just a kid, or helpless for whatever reason, has become totally badass, and that's exactly what they did here, so it already gets points from me for doing that. The first Dishonored is probably one of the best games I've ever played, and I don't think Dishonored 2 quite lives up to it, but it does do a damn good job. Although, having said that it doesn't quite live up to the first one, I can't really think of a single thing it doesn't do as well. The new powers you got by playing as Emily were really cool, and if you didn't want to use those, you could play with the powers from the first game by choosing Corvo. The game has huge replay value by having loads of different ways you can solve any given problem, and the combat, when you get it right, makes you feel like a complete badass. If I had to choose something that Dishonored 2 didn't do as well as the first Dishonored, it'd probably be story. The story felt a bit more simple this time, and that's okay, it did just seem to facilitate the gameplay, but there definitely could have been more to it. I suppose another thing I felt was missing from this game that was better in the first game, which this is just going to be a personal preference type thing, I didn't feel as mysterious in this game. Everyone knows who your character is. You're not some mysterious badass picking off people one by one. You're the person that literally everyone knows is going to want revenge. And that for me personally isn't as exciting of a dynamic. One of the main criticisms I hear of this game is that it's too similar to the first one. But for me, the first one was so short that I just wanted more of it from the second one. And that's basically what it gave me, just with a load of extra cool things added on. So I'm happy. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I've done a whole series of Gaming Sins videos in the past, which you can watch by clicking a link to a playlist on screen now. I'm planning on bringing that back. Not super regularly though, because I don't really have the time to play a game every week to make a video about it. But when I've just played a game anyway, or I see a new Sins video on a game I've already played, I'll make a video about it.